Hey guys, welcome back to the Betar Project. Today's special guest has competed at the highest level at Two Giants Live, which is the World's Strongest Man qualifying events, represented Australia in Olympic weightlifting, and was also the first Australian to win gold medal in Russia. So without further ado, let me introduce Jordan Biggie Steffans, my man. Thank you for coming on.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me on. You did have a good friend of mine, Luke Reynolds, on a few weeks ago, and I just appreciate coming on and having a chat, my man.
So tell me, where does the nickname Biggie come from?
That's been a nickname I've had since I was young. Like, I was always like a really big kid. So like in high school, I was sort of like well into 6 foot, like well into 100 odd kilos in like early high school. So I was always a really, really big kid, and I got that nickname from school, and, just basically stuck ever since, man. Like, not many people know me as Jordan. Like, I think even my family don't know me as Jordan. It's been Biggie from such a young age. It's just stuck. So, just always being a big kid. That's always where it stuck from. And now it's my number plate in all my cars as well. So.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man. So take me back to your upbringing, man. What was that like?
Well, look, I was not too dissimilar to any other kid, I guess, here in South Australia. I played football as a kid growing up in school. I actually grew up in the Adelaide Hills. I wasn't a city boy. I grew up in the hills here. Moved down to the city sort of when I was in my late primary school, early high school years. Play basketball and all that type of stuff in school, and then basically was sort of went through school and sort of found my way into strength sports from there. But for me, I started wrestling at Flinders University as a 13, 14-year-old kid. So that was kind of, I guess, my upbringing. I got one bigger older brother. He probably should have had the nickname Biggie, not me. Very lucky with a good family around me, and I guess that was kind of having that country growing up and then moving to the city. I did have a country growing up type of feel, but a very city through my later years as well.
Mm. So you start off at wrestling and then you moved into weightlifting, yeah?
So as a kid, I went to a school here in Adelaide, and one of the I'd say year 11 or 12s was prepping for Olympics. I think it would have been China, Beijing Olympics. And he was a national champion, Oceania champion, et cetera, traveled to the US and back. And, he took a shining to me and said, look, you're a big kid, you should come out and do wrestling. So I did wrestling, won a few national titles as a schoolboy and junior. Then at the same school, the weightlifting the South Australian Weightlifting Association came out to my school and taught us how to do a clean and jerk. And I obviously lifted quite heavy. I think I was probably about 40 kilos ahead of whoever else was in the school at the time. So they obviously the weightlifting took quite a shining to me as well. And to be honest, mate, then it's history from there. My life basically for training started when I was 13 for wrestling, and then my life really kicked up a gear when I took up weightlifting when I was just nearly 15 years old. And from there on in, matey, it was just non-stop. It was, it was strength training all the way through into strongman, into powerlifting, into Highland Games, into, where I am now. And it's been a hell of a ride. These 15 years or so, lots of ups, lots of downs, meeting so many good people, traveling the world. And as we were chatting about before I came online, my age of 30 years old is very young still in strength sports. I've probably got another 5 to 10 years of training in me, but my training is 15 to 17 years already. So I look a lot older and feel a lot older than what I really am.
It's just the moustache, mate, as I said before.
Yeah, we'll stick with that. Thank you. I really appreciate that, my man. Thank you very much.
So did you pick up the weightlifting pretty easy? Because they're quite technical moves.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm 15 years down the track now, and I still think my form is terrible as a coach. But look, we worked really hard at a young age. I was at the South Australian Institute of Sport at 15, being coached by the best coaches in the country, and travelled to the AIS and trained there. And I was being looked after by some of the best weightlifting coaches in Australia, and if not the world. So I worked hard and was drilled very, very meticulously by the coaches to have good form. And, at a young age, young kids pick things up like that. Like I coach young kids now, and they just the knowledge just gets sucked in. And that's
Yeah, they're sponges.
That's it, man. Absolutely, they're sponges. Like yourself, man. You're a young dude, man. You'd still be a sponge now yourself.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where they just take it in, and their recovery and all that type of stuff is phenomenal, man, because I can still remember being 18 and like deadlifting heavy one day, squatting heavy the next, and bench pressing heavy the next. If I squat heavy one day, I need 6 months off to be able to deadlift heavy the next, because I'm just older and I don't recover as well. But as a young kid, I was very blessed to have great coaches who gave me a lot of time. So it took time to learn. It takes years. Weightlifting is not something you learn overnight. It's something that takes months and months and months. But once you get the hang of it, it's like driving a car, man. You don't really lose it. You can come back pretty well into the sport again once you've sort of taken time off.
Mm. How old were you when you represented Australia?
My first representation of Australia, I was still a junior. I think I went to a junior Oceanias in New Caledonia, so I would have been 17. I was a 17-year-old or 16-year-old at the time, so I was only maybe 2 years into my career as a weightlifter when I first made my, Australian debut in weightlifting, which was just an absolute it's still a surreal moment. I've got photos and videos of me in New Caledonia. We had a training camp there first. And, I've got my shirt in my cupboard from there, and my first Australian weightlifting suit. And it's something I'll never forget. It was, when you get sent out your Australian gear the first time, it really sinks in. Go, holy shit, I made it. You've done so many years of training, and you finally make your first Australian team. It's a really nice feeling. But I was very young at the time, and but it was a lot of fun. I had a bit of a knee injury coming in, which sucked, but it doesn't really matter too much. I still got to wear the green and gold a few times, but that was the first. I was a teenager still.
And then you went to Russia and competed in the Olympics, was it?
No, so I went to Russia and competed in their Russian Cup, or their Russian Weightlifting Cup, one of their massive events that they run over there. And I was very lucky to compete with a whole lot of Russian champions, etc., etc. And I was so lucky to have the opportunity and to compete there and win, which was, again, probably the highlight of my career. But I've had so many highlights, but that was definitely up there. I just remember in the warm-up room, I hit my last attempt. We did a massive jump from my second to third attempt because we were watching the other guy who was actually an ex-national champion for Russia. And he looked difficult on his second attempt while mine was quite easy. So I jumped big and nailed my third. And he went to try and beat me and missed his third. And I can still remember one of the coaches going, dude, he missed it. You won. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, he missed his last attempt. You've won. And I just sat there for a minute going, holy shit. From all my years as a kid, as a 15-year-old kid watching, because in my period of time, Russian weightlifting was as high as anyone could ever get. And my dream was to compete against the Russian guys and the best guys in the world, and compete in Russia was always a dream. And I got to live that dream. But winning is very different. It's kind of like a Russian AFL team coming over here and beating our reigning premiers. That's the sort of difference between the two countries. Is weightlifting is their national sport. That is what they do on a daily basis. They have schools for this sport. they train hard, they work hard, they get paid. Like, you know, to win a gold medal in Russia, they get given a $500,000 car if they win a gold medal. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. You were the first Aussie to win gold medal over there, weren't you?
First Australian to ever win a gold medal for weightlifting in Russia. Other sports, I'm assuming other sports have won stuff, but to win a weightlifting medal in a country where it's their national sport is, still a bit surreal to me. It'll probably never be. It'll never feel real to me. It'll always, you know, be one of those pinch myself moments. But you know, I had so much support. My brother was there with me that year, which was pretty cool. You know, I had so much support back home in Adelaide and friends and family and sponsors, and without them, man, it wouldn't have happened. Like, what I do is good, but if I didn't have people supporting me, you know, where would I really be? You know, it's very much a team effort. A lot of people say that these types of sports are you on your own, and when you're on the platform or when you're lifting, you are by yourself. You have to represent yourself, and you have to represent the sponsors and the people that support you. But for the 6 months leading in, or the 2 months leading in, or however long you've prepped for, they've helped you and supported you get there. So, you know, it's things like that people sort of miss, I think, sometimes, is that there's a lot more to it than just doing some bicep curls, some clean and press, some strict press, some squats, and then going out there and just winning or losing. You know, there's a lot more behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's a massive achievement, man.
Thank you. Look, I really appreciate it. And, you know, like I said, I hope and I pray that the next generation of guys and girls coming through Australian weightlifting will be the next guys to take medals overseas and win medals overseas and worlds and Olympics. And, you know, if they get invited to go to big countries like Russia or the US or China, or countries where weightlifting is their lives, I'd be looking forward to seeing Australians take it to them as well and, you know, kick some ass.
Mm. Did you say you had the videos of you competing over there?
Yeah, I've got my winning clean and jerk, and I'm pretty sure I have a few photos of me getting my gold medal from Russian weightlifting legend Dmitry Klokov. So I probably should print that off and get it framed, actually. But I look fondly back at all that type of stuff. But like I said, I now look at it from a coaching point of view, is that I'm wanting my athletes now, the next generation of guys, to do what I did plus 10, you know, if they want to. You know, I would like, if people are wanting to do it and they're wanting to represent their country and wanting to be the best, I hope they can do what I did times 10, as I said.
Yeah. So what was it like competing against Dmitry Klokov?
So my first year I went over there, I did what they called the Klokov Power Weekend. So what that was basically he picked a whole lot of events that he loved. So like max hang snatch, max jerk out the rack, max clean and strict press, max. There's 1RM for basically everything. And we sort of did the comp, and I remember warming up in the back room, and so I've got Dmitry Klokov and Dmitry Lapikov and Dmitry Berestov, 3 Russian guys. Berestov was the last gold medalist for Russian men's weightlifting. Lapikov had snatched 215 not too long before this comp, and Klokov was the next world champ himself. Then I had the Ukrainian team who had 3 world champions in it. I had the Polish team who had 2 world championships, world champions, and a world champion coach. Who else did I have? Uzbekistan had their world junior champion there. Who else was there? And then RMC was Misha Koklayev, who was and still is my hero. Like, he is my hero. Everything I've done in my career is almost to emulate what he's done, because he's just a superstar, unbelievable athlete. So we had all of that on, and I'm sitting in the warm-up room looking around at all these people, and I'm like, holy shit, why am I here? Well, I probably shouldn't be here, but I'll take it. I reckon about 10 minutes into warming up, Alexei Lovchev, who was 2016 World Super Heavyweight Champion, walked in the door and like came up to all of us and wished us good luck. And I'm like, oh yeah, right. Thank you. Jesus. We walked out onto the platform to be introduced to the crowd. So we're all in one big line. I'm pretty sure I got a photo of that too. All of us in one line in front, being introduced to the crowd. And in the front row, you've got Russian world champions, Russian dignitary. You got like Russian government, like everything all through the front. They had this special marked off area with big cushioned seats and everything like that. And you look down and you're like, holy moly, there's some, pretty big names sitting in that crowd. And then behind that, you've got these huge big grandstands packed, like thousands of people in thousands. Then you've got, all that going on in the fitness expo behind that. And so we're warming up and I'm looking around at all these guys and there's Klokov down there. And Klokov is a very proud-looking, he's very Russian.
Yeah.
He can walk in a room and every eye just goes straight towards him. Big, good-looking, that typical, powerful person. And, he was just really cool to compete with, really, he won that competition, obviously, by a mile. I think we went Russia 1, 2, 3. So, that was just, for me, was, again, a dream come true. I'm competing with world champs and competing in Russia. I'm being looked upon as an equal when, in my mind and my knowledge, I know I'm not in any way to these guys. These guys are well above me and always will be. But in that country, as a weightlifter, you're a superstar.
Yeah.
He walks around and people are wanting to give him people are asking for autographs, stopping him, photos, left, right, centre. We had buses taking us from venue to hotel, and he just was getting harassed walking through the venue. Like, it was just ridiculous. Once the competition was done, they hand out the awards, and the crowd jumped on the stage. They ran on the stage. I just bang on stage. There was people everywhere. Photos, selfies, like people just running up to me and just going, selfie, bang, selfie. It was one of the, it really made me feel like an actual athlete. Not saying when I competed for Australia or as a weightlifter, I was never treated as an athlete. I was treated as a great athlete here in Australia, don't get me wrong. But you're treated like a movie star. It's so different. You are the it and a bit of everything, and it was just a surreal feeling to just have people just bang right in your face. And
you felt on top of the world.
It was a great feeling, and something, like I said, I will never ever forget. But it's just like I said, those guys are just superstars. They're absolute superstars. The way they handle themselves, the way it all works over there, it's just a very different world. And but it's cool to experience that. But at the same time, I do love coming back to Adelaide and to Australia and just spending some time here, because it's, I guess, in most of my career, I rarely ever competed in my own state, my own country. So, that was what I like to do.
Yeah. What did you end up coming in that competition?
The first year?
Yeah.
The first year I went to Russia? Did I make top 10? I don't think so. I don't think I made top 10. I might have. Maybe I might have made like 9th, maybe 10th out of maybe 15 of us. So I wasn't at the top. Let's put that into perspective. But, this was a very different standard. The first year I was there was a learning curve for me, and I wasn't outclassed. I stayed with the guys, but there's just so many good guys. There's world champions everywhere. So I have no belief that I was in there for a chance of a medal. I was there to enjoy my experience as a first-time competitor in Russia, learn what it's like to compete there. I remember doing the 24-hour flight to get there, and I was knackered. I remember we had jerk out the rack, so like front rack, max overhead press. And I jerked 205 or 210 coming in. I did 190 and missed 200 because the time difference just killed me. And that was one of the big learning curves for me, was competing with such a time change and a few other little things. And I was just, it was just one of those things. We were competing at night time, so you're doing, all this stuff during the day. And it was and awe-inspiring for me too. I've competed against the best guys in the world in strongman, but this was still different again. I probably looked up to this as more of a thing for me than competing against the best guys in strongman, because these guys were Olympians and world champions, and, all that type of jazz. So I was I got my ass kicked.
That's all right. It sounds like a great life experience.
Oh, it was the best feeling ever. My first interstate show I ever did as a 16, 17-year-old kid, I was up against Aaron Neighbours, who was World High Games champion, Scott Martin, Olympic thrower, Dale Stevenson, who's future Olympian. And I just remember getting my ass handed to me. But guess what? It was the best feeling ever, because I got to compete against the best guys in the world and get my ass kicked. Because I knew I was competing against people that were good. I wasn't competing against anybody. I was competing against the best. And it just didn't matter. It just to be there and hang with them. That was always my first time experience of big shows, was to get my ass handed to me, understand what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong, what I needed to change, and then come back and kick ass.
Yep.
It's a very big learning curve for guys that do their first pro show in strongman, first international in weightlifting. It's a very nerve-wracking situation. But once you learn it and you can harness that and actually understand how to do it and how to be on the platform and how to be as a competitor, it'll make you so much better.
Did you end up going to the Olympics at all?
No. So I was prepping for Edinburgh Commonwealth Games 2014? Yeah, I think 2014 was Edinburgh, Glasgow, one of the Com Games in Scotland. Yeah. And I moved up to Queensland, and I was training up there with Damon Kelly, who's an Australian weightlifting legend, and the coaches and myself we'd mapped out what numbers I was going to hit in each competition, and then by the end of it, smoke it, do trials, kick ass, go to Scotland. So we were going to pick 2 super heavyweights. Damo was a shoo-in, because he was the best super heavyweight in the country at the time, and there was myself and another guy who were fighting for the second spot. Now, I was in Queensland doing clean and jerks, and I was meant to hit a triple at 170. So it was a clean, jerk, clean, jerk, clean, jerk. Did a clean and jerk, good. Did another clean jerk, good. Third clean, caught the bar with my elbow on my leg, so my elbows didn't get through fast enough, so I dropped here, and my elbow got pinned on my leg, and 170 kilos went straight down on top of my wrist. So I crushed the capsule, tore the ligament, bruised the bone in my wrist. This was 2 months pre-trial. I came back to Adelaide. I went to Melbourne to see a specialist. I got a cortisone. I trained another month, and then just went, my wrist is not going to handle it, so I pulled out, which sucked, because I wanted to do that. I'd trained for at least the last 6 months leading in. I was in very good shape. I think I would have had to have snatched 150 and clean jerk 190, which I was well on the way to doing. But due to the circumstances of injury, I missed out on Com Games then. And that was basically the I guess the straw that broke the camel's back in a way. And I basically moved away from weightlifting, and I'd gone back and forth between strongman and weightlifting, and that was kind of the start of me looking to move away from competitive sport.
Yep.
And move into what I do now.
So how did you get into strongman?
How did I get into it? Funny story. So I was weightlifting at the South Australian Institute of Sport, and I got asked to come up to watch South Australia's Strongest Man in Mount Barker. And the guy who was running it is like, well, you're here now, you might as well compete. I'm here in shorts and sneakers and a shirt. They're like, well, yeah, you're plenty strong. I'm like, yeah, but I've never done this before. Like, no. And I got second. I'd never done strongman in my life. I've done weightlifting. Don't get me wrong, I've done weightlifting for years. So it's not like I was complete newbie to everything. I'd done training before. So I went out there, I got second, and I was like, oh, maybe I do have a bit of something in this. And this was 07, so my last year of high school. Yeah, I sort of started training every Saturday morning, still doing weightlifting, and I sort of enjoyed strongman more, so I sort of made that sort of change and back into strongman. And yeah, my life has basically been strongman since 07, really. I have dipped back into weightlifting every now and then. I made a few Australian teams through that period of time, and my love and my goals were solely in strongman.
Were you the youngest Aussie to turn pro in strongman?
21, 2000 and... See, I tell you the funny thing. Obviously, you did the podcast with Luke Reynolds. That boy has got everything written down, one after another. I'm sure you and him had the conversation. He has every comp documented. Everything he's done documented. And I love him for it. Me, on the other hand, I've got to try and hope that this brain, which is getting sloppier by the day, can remember it. But it should have... 2011 was my first pro show, and I was 21. I'd made Giants live, and talking about experiences, that was a hell of an experience too, getting my ass kicked there as well. I think I got my butt handed to me 2011 and 2012, competing against the best pros in the world. But it was, again, an awesome, awesome experience to do well at certain events and then get my butt kicked at another. And I just have so many stories from those shows and events. You know, some of the stories just bring a massive smile to my face because they're just funny as hell. You know, being a young kid up there against those guys.
What's some of the best stories you can tell?
From the pro show, my first pro shows?
Yeah.
Okay, so my first pro show, I was obviously so nervous, you know, because my first pro show, I've been training years, and I remember going out there, and this was actually a bit of a learning curve for me rather than being a funny story, but I was first out against Jeremy Hogg from WA, but he was competing for New Zealand. It was a keg carry, up, back. And we were sitting there, we'd warmed up, etc., ready to go. Cameras are on us. Colin Bryce, who runs World's Strongest Man, he's like, no, 10 minutes, the cameras aren't ready. I'm like, what do you mean 10 minutes, the cameras aren't ready? We're ready to go now. And no. 10 minutes, the cameras are ready, and then we go. So it was a big learning curve for me to actually understand that, it's done for television, Jordan, not for the athletes. Yeah. The athletes are there, and, you know, it's a learning curve. People just think, like, they see the guys on TV and it just flows and everything happens. And as you understand as a podcaster, there's editing to be done. Yeah. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So that was kind of a bit of an interesting learning curve. We came into the last event. The last event was a loading race, and the event was actually finishing, and we didn't have time to get all the athletes through, so I was taken off. I was just told I wasn't doing the run, and they just put me down as I did not finish. Shit. And that was, trust me, that was devastating to me. Absolutely devastating. I fucking went behind the stands and just had my hands over my head, and I just couldn't believe this is how I was being treated. But I had to look at it from the point of view of the whole show. I was never going to win. I was dead last. I think I had like 5 points. And you've got all these other pro guys who are the best in the world. Like, you can't get angry if you're not on their level. You cannot sit there and persecute the promoter for doing the right thing for the whole show and for the business. Business is business. And as an athlete, people need to understand that. Like, you know, was I devastated? Yes. Did I think they were treating me like shit? Yes. Did I think they were dicks? Yes. But when I sat down and thought about it, and as I became a promoter over time, I came to understand the reasoning behind it all. And, you know, sometimes not everything in life is fair. But trust me, that fired me up to come back better. You know, I had to harness it and use it in the right direction. Harness it for hate and resentment and all the terrible shit. Harness it and go, you know what, I'm going to come back next year and I'm not going to be the person they leave off because I'm good enough not to be the person to be left off anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It came back in 2012. 2012 was a funny year. Luke Reynolds was a part of the Viking protein stand. He wasn't competing that year. And I got gastro the night before the comp. I got gastro badly. I went from into the mid 130 body weight to 120 odd overnight. In 12 hours, I lost like 9 kilos. It was amazing. And I got really sick. I vomited in my own bed. I vomited all over the floor, like just to turn this podcast really classy all of a sudden.
Shit yourself as well or what?
Say again?
Shit yourself or what?
Yeah, shit yeah. I did, like not even joking. I did. I was so unwell. I couldn't stop anything. I could not stop. I slept maybe 45 minutes. I got up the next day. I went to a local hospital in Melbourne, got the tablets to stop you from being sick. Went back to, this was like 5 a.m. in the morning. I've jumped in a cab and I've gone back to the hotel room and had just sat in the shower. And the lady who cleaned my room, whoever she is, deserves a gold medal and $1 million because there was shit fucking everywhere. And I felt so bad for it, but I was so unwell. I rang the guy who was running the Australian side of the promotion and said, look, dude, I'm sick. He's like, do you still want to compete? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, should I tell Colin? He's like, do not tell Colin because he won't run you. So I kept it to myself. The only person that actually knew was like Luke Reynolds and my room, the guy who was staying in the hotel with me. So there was a gastro bug going around Melbourne at the time and I got it. Yay. And I remember getting to the competition and event one was Farmer's Walk, like 175 a hand, 180 a hand. It was hugely heavy because it was a pros.
Yeah.
And I was paired up with Tristan O'Brien, who was South Africa's strongest man at the time. And I usually wear a kilt when I'm competing with the like the skins type underneath so people don't look up my kilt. And for those who have done pro shows or those who have done television understand how it works, you've got these massive big downlights on you that are like 1,000,000 degrees. So I'm sitting there sweating bullets before I've even done anything because I'm unwell and I'm probably the same colour as this piece of paper, like not very, very coloured at all. And I'm warming up for event one and I go, you know what? I'm going to be on ESPN. I'm going to be on Foxtel, shitting my pants in front of 5,000 people and millions of people watching around the world. I said, this is going to be unbelievable. But hey, look, you know, at least I'll make a name for this. So we've set up for event one, and I'm prepping at the start line, and referees down the centre. Jordan, ready? Yep. Tristan, yep. Set. And I'm like, oh, here it comes. It's going to happen. Go. And I've gone, well, might as well go. Picked up, bolted down. Hit the end of it, had to turn around and come back. Picked up, got halfway back down again. Didn't shit myself. Best feeling ever. And PR'd as well, actually. I carried the farmers further than ever. I've never carried that heavy that far before. So at one end of the spectrum, I think I went into the competition not knowing what I was going to do. How could I know? I was so unwell. I just was like, look, if I survive this competition, I'll be doing well. We had another event later on in the show, which was the yoke walk, and there was a legendary strongman named Sven Carlson who was there with the Viking Project, who Luke was involved with. And yoke was my best event. I don't think I'd lost yoke in Australia for years before that. And I picked up and did my first run down, picked up the keg. So it was a yoke and then keg carry and dropped the keg, and I won my heat. I think I got like 4th overall in that event, which was awesome. To be 4th out of the best guys in the world was great. And Sven Carlson goes, mate, that was a really good yoke run. Awesome. So to hear that from someone as good as him, who was a world record holder of that, was, you know, a bit of pumping up of the old tyres, I guess, for me, considering I felt like crap. But then we moved on to the deadlift that night, which for most people who know me as a strongman know I hate deadlift and I've always sucked at it. And we were doing the deadlift and I was up against Nick Best because I placed so high in the yoke. I was one of the last guys to go out for the deadlift. So I was paired against Nick Best, who was a world powerlifting champ. So Jordan, who hates deadlift, versus a guy who's a world powerlifting champion, where deadlift is one of their main lifts. So I can say that I was on stage for a deadlift world record. I didn't do it. I pulled 0 reps. I think Nick Best pulled 12 at 350 or something ridiculous. And we've walked off the stage and I've congratulated Nick, and Sven's gone, "How did you go?" So I got 0. He's like, "That isn't very many, is it?" And I've just gone, "Oh, God, give me a break." But I had to laugh deep down inside. It was funny. Someone like him, just his wit was really, really good. So no matter how much I felt like shit at that competition, having those moments I'll remember forever were just really, really cool. Really cool.
Are you a student of strongman and the strength culture like Luke Reynolds? He knows so much history.
I'm a nerd, man. Me and Luke sit and chat about this very regularly, man. Like, we've sort of both come through that same time period where we look back in history. I love Circus Strongman. I look back at the guys who came before me. Myself and Luke are very big of respecting the past, who came before me. There were so many guys that made this sport before I was here. Without them, I'm nobody. I'm a nothing. I'm just so lucky that I was able to come along and be a part of it, and be a small cog in the massive wheels of strength sport through time and through history. But, ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be strong. I love circus strongman. I love the guys like Louis Cyr, Eugene Sandow, guys like that who came well before us from the circus period, the 1800s, 1900s, through to Paul Anderson in the 70s, who started World's Strongest Man, through to Sven Carlson, through to Yuka Ahola, through to Magnus Samuelsson and guys like that. And then you come through to the new period of time, like Zydrunas, like Derek Poundstone, like Mike Jenkins, rest in peace, Brian Shaw, Ed Hall, Thor Bjornsson. There was a lot of guys before these newbies who were around, but strongman's been around since the dawn of time. The stones have been lifted in Scotland and Iceland and Europe for thousands of years. The Dinny stones, Donald Dinny, the McGlashan stones, the Husafelt stones, all these stones have been lifted by giants for thousands of years, So I think when people think strongman just started in the last 10 years, they need to take a big deep breath and have a look back through history, because this has been around since the dawn of time.
Yeah. I asked Luke if there was a strength culture in the Indigenous back in the, 50 years ago. Like, was there any strength culture there within the Indigenous community?
In Australia?
Yeah.
That's a good question. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. Again, I don't know what Luke's response was.
No, he said he wasn't sure. It was mostly in European areas.
We have such in I guess our culture, in the white man culture in Australia, we're so young, and different cultures have different things. Like, I would say is not knowing the Aboriginal or the Indigenous history that well in strength sports or sports that, but different societies have very different physical builds and stuff like that. So I'd say the Indigenous community might have more of an athletic style history than a strength style history to us. But that's an extremely interesting question that I do not have an answer for, but it would be something I actually would like to now research, because the Indigenous community here have such an athletic background. You watch these guys play football, you watch these guys do athletic, they just, leave the white man for nothing. I know so many kids who've come through the athletic system that do high jump, and they don't pursue it, but they just kill everyone. It's really cool, really, really cool. But I will do my very best to actually look into this. I might even chat to Luke about it and have a look into it, because I'll be really interested to see what type of strength athletics the Indigenous people of Australia have had.
Yeah, I'd love to know that, because hearing all the history that Luke told me, I was like, wow, I never knew all this stuff. So I'd like to know more if they're branched out into, Aboriginal community, even like New Zealand
Yeah,
Indigenous.
yeah. Well, every country has their own thing. Like, I'm assuming New Zealand is and like through there we're island country, so we have to be seafaring type people. And going from island to island. So my thoughts would be something along the Viking style thing where carrying huge logs and stuff like that, where the Vikings built their boats and they're carrying these huge logs. So I'd assume somewhere like New Zealand or somewhere around the island countries where they're very seafaring, they sort of become strong like that. I know when I spent my time in New Caledonia, a lot of the islander guys there would climb the coconut trees and pour down coconuts. So there was this massive dude named Ite who was a world junior bronze medalist. I competed against him many times. He would have been probably 5'9", 5'10", 165 body weight. Massive. I kid you not, he looked like a fridge. But he was just cool, man. He was quietly smoking, would squat 300 kilos like that. He was just a dude. Seriously, he went up to a coconut tree and just climbed it, no shoes, popped down a coconut, chucked it down. That's the type of strength stuff the Islander sort of community has, just that natural athleticism, but at such a size. When he climbed, I'm like, man, that tree ain't going to handle that. But his natural ability and athleticism was just ridiculous. It really was just ridiculous.
Yeah, you see it in sport like rugby. They're just naturals.
The way they can just do that two-step, bang, bang, and then they've changed direction at pace. They've got this unique ability, and just being strong. They were just a very strong breed of people, and it's amazing to watch them do their thing. They blend that athleticism and the strength very, very well together.
Is there many Islanders competing in strongman? Like I know Rongo Keane does, but besides that,
yeah, Rongo Keane and my friend and Luke's friend. Colin Wolfe, who, in my opinion, is probably the most talented strength athlete, strongman that this area of the world has produced in the last 10 years. He is phenomenal. Like if he'd focused and on strongman, he would have been world's strongest man. Like he was ridiculous. I remember him walking into my house one day here in Adelaide, and he's so broad. Brian Shaw's really broad, but Combs broader again. He almost couldn't fit through my door. It was ridiculous. And guy's 6'6". A good story from me, Luke, and Colm, another one, because me and Luke have a million stories from both of me and him spending time together. We went to McDonald's one time in Adelaide, and me and Luke had walked in, and Colm's walked in. And this is when those new boards were coming in where you don't have to go to the counter, you put in your order. And Combs turned around and he's so wide, he smashed into one and almost snapped the thing off the wall. Me and Luke have turned around and gone, dude, do you want to eat the shop as well as knock it down? Like, we wouldn't want to order something before you just demolish the place, Dax. But he's just such a lovely dude, but just one of the biggest people I've ever seen. Eddie Williams, another guy from New South Wales, Islander boy. Jaden Hill, a lightweight boy from who was actually from Adelaide originally, but New Zealand boy. Sorry, he was originally a New Zealand boy, moved to Adelaide. Those guys just have been so strong. Rongo is just Rongo is great, man. He's out there as hell. He's just a lovely, lovely guy with a great attitude, a great mindset, and bull strong.
Yeah, I love his character, man. He's fucking awesome.
He is, man. He's great for the sport. He is one of those guys that understand how things should be done and how they need to be done. He's really good. I've had a lot to do with him over the years. He's a lovely guy. And he's just a good guy with a great mindset, and he works hard. He works very hard.
I loved watching his World's Strongest Man home edition, how he all dressed up and stuff. That was funny as.
He's good. Like I said, he understands, he gets it. Like, I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and a lot of people kind of lose they sort of lose the look of actually understanding strongman's more than who deadlifts the most. Strongman's a little bit more than who presses the most. It's about what you do outside of it to make you more approachable, more a brand almost. You know, a lot of these guys do certain things to help them become better strongmen, but, you know, you got to understand that it's for television, yeah. You have to be marketable, you know, but again, you got to enjoy yourself too. You know, you can't just do all that and all the training and nothing of the other stuff. So, you know, he's done a fantastic job. He does a lot of good work, and he just loves doing that type of stuff. That's him. Like, people that have never met him before, like I said, I've competed with him and run shows that he's competed on my shows, and he's just out there and funny as hell. And I would, you know, if I was ever to run shows again or come out of retirement to promote shows, he'd be one of the first guys alongside Luke Reynolds. Those two guys would be the first two guys I put in there because Luke is so professional, so skilled, so many years under his belt. He's a great teacher of the sport. He's a great knowledge of the industry. Me and him have been schooled very similar, so we both know history. We both know where we came from and who came before us. And Rongo's very much the new generation, but out there, funny, very respectful, very smart. And those two actually work really well together as if I was a promoter, because you've got the new generation with, I guess, not the old generation, but a different generation.
It brings in a new audience as well, because they'll follow him on Instagram for him being funny, and they'll be like, all right, I'm going to watch Strongman now.
Exactly. It's no different to when Larry Wills went to join Strongman, and people had the shits about that. Personally, you know, if Larry wants to do Strongman, good on him. You know, this is the whole business side of things again, right? Where we talk about businesses need people coming through the door to buy a product to watch their show. Larry Wills, who has like 1 million, 2 million followers, he's perfect. He's bringing a whole new eye set to the sport. But he's stepping over a whole lot of guys that have been in the sport for 10, 15 years. Is that right? Yes and no. Can he hang with the guys? Yes. Does he deserve a spot? If he can hang, of course he does. The other guys who have worked hard for so many years, yeah, it's a kick in the guts. And, you know, is it fair? Maybe not necessarily fair for them, but I guess, like I've said all along, that's life sometimes. It's not always easy. It's not meant to be. But, yeah, no, like I said, Rongo has been very good for that and definitely bringing a whole lot of new eyes, especially from New Zealand. He's very popular there, which is good because New Zealand, like Australia, is a very small demographic of strongmen. We're definitely a lot more or less underground than we have been, but we are more underground still. But we are starting to come out of that underground sort of area of sport. And it's guys like that, Eddie Williams and Rongo, who are doing that.
So was Giants Live the highest level you've competed at?
In strongman?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yes. I never made World's Strongest Man. Would have loved to, but never did. So, yeah, Giants Live, the World's Strongest Man qualifiers was as high as I got. Obviously did them at very young ages, 21 and 22. So, yeah, that was kind of my peak in the sport by this time. And, you know, I met so many wonderful people, so many lovely guys that I still keep in contact with now, Ed Hall and Thor and Brian and all those guys I try and keep in regular contact with, you know, every few months just drop them a line and, you know, they're busy guys and, you know, just try and drop them a line and say hello and just, you know, just do that type of thing to keep in contact because when you're at that level, you sort of want to keep in contact with guys and chat and see what they're doing. And, you know, so I was very blessed to get those two opportunities to do those shows at such a young age, but just to get those opportunities in general. So, yeah, that was kind of as high as I got to with that. And, you know, very blessed and very lucky I even got there.
And what was it like competing with, you know, the big dogs, Eddie Hall and that? Or were you kind of used to it from competing in weightlifting at such a high level? I
was used to it. I was used to competing with top guys by then. I'd done world events on weightlifting. Don't get me wrong, Ed Hall wasn't – me and Ed Hall did our first pro show together. There's a fact for you. Me and Ed, both 2011 Melbourne Giants Live was Ed's first pro show and my first pro show. So we both did our first pro show together. So he wasn't a big name. He was just another dude who just was a fucking beast. He could just deadlift huge and press huge. You know, the big names at the show that my first show was Mike Burke, who was Brian Shaw's training partner at the time, Mike Jenkins, who was touted to be the next big thing in strongman until, again, rest in peace, he passed away. Nick Best, who was there, who was one of the best in the world. And then you had the South African guys there who were legit world's strongest man guys. So, yes, Ed, no one knew Ed was going to go on to where he was. He obviously had a great attitude, a great mindset. He was funny. So everyone knew there was something about him. But, again, competing with those guys was kind of normal for me. I didn't see them as anything different than just competitors and friends. It was kind of just like, well, I've competed against Olympians before this anyway, and in world championships, they're no different to me. They're just, guys who are going out there to do the best they can to earn a living and make money and, do their very best and represent themselves, their country, and all the people around them, So as a kid, I guess, there, I was a bit, starstruck more to see Arnold than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I seen you got a picture with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very lucky for 2 years as a competitor to get photos with Arnold, and then as MC for the Arnold's Australia AMC a few years. I was very lucky to get photos and interview Arnold as well, which was just that was probably more of a star moment than anything else I've ever done almost.
Yeah. So after those 2 giant live shows, what was next for you in strongman? What'd you do?
So through there, I went into I did record breakers here in Adelaide and broke many records here with Luke and Rongo and the guys like that. So I was doing record breakers, and I went back to weightlifting in that time as well and represented Australia and New Zealand at a Australia versus New Zealand Cup and a few other events as well. Commonwealth Games trials was in that time as well, where I got hurt. I was doing Highland Games a lot with Luke, coming to Sydney and doing Highland Games through there. So I was doing a lot of sort of circuit work through New South Wales and all that type of stuff, and was still, putting my toes into weightlifting as well. And then sort of through there, after that, I did through my trips to Russia through 2016, 17, and 18. And then hung up my boots from competitive weightlifting in 2018. By then, my competitive years at strongman had gone by then too. I think I'd say 2015 to 2016, I was basically off the circuit of strongman as well. I wouldn't say I was retired, but I wasn't doing very much. I was coaching a lot too.
Yeah. What are some of the records you broke?
Me and Luke still have the Australian stone lifting record. I'm sure he would have brought that up when he did the conversation with you. In my shed just outside that wall, that stone still sits. Nice 213 kilos full of lead. So that stone is heavy as hell. That still stands this very day. We would have thought it would have broken by now. 5 years ago. God, someone's got to take that record up. I've had enough of Luke and me having it. But trust me, there's been so many guys that have come so close. Don't get me wrong, those guys have done so close to 215. And there's so many guys that deserve it. And that record will go. Trust me, it'll go by the wayside. The guys are bigger, stronger than I ever was. And the yoke, the big frame that we carry, I've still got the record at over 600 kilos, 610. And, that record still stands this very day from 2015. And I reckon that record will go sometime this year. A good friend of mine hopefully will break that record, Dan Mackery. In my opinion, he was actually prepping. We were going to do the record together. We were going to go lift for lift and see who could go the heaviest. And honestly, if he didn't hurt himself, that record wouldn't have been 610. It would have been like 650. He would have done. Yeah. Dan, in my opinion, is probably the strongest man Australia's had in God knows how long, but he's just been so unlucky with injuries. Torn pec, torn forearm, torn left, right, and centre. Him and Luke Reynolds could have an injury off. They could sit down and compare injuries all day. It'd take 7 or 8 hours, but they could compare injuries all day. But Dan's ridiculous. I really hope he takes a record because he deserves it. He deserves that record. He really does.
So was the yoke just lifting it up or walking it for distance as well?
So it was done by the Arnold Classic USA rule. So it was 7.5 meters in under a minute was the time cap. So you pick up, carry it, 7.5 meters in under a minute. I think my time was, I've got the exact time, it's like 20:23 or 20:32. So I carried 610 kilos, 7.5 meters in just over 20 seconds.
Shit. Have you ever burst blood vessels lifting that heavy?
Pulling the trains and planes. I've had a blood nose when I pulled to the real heavy train last year. But blood noses are very rare, very rare. I tend to take care of myself physically, and I do a lot of blood work and doctor work and making sure I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise. So I'm healthy, wealthy, I'm not. Wise, definitely not. But, I always try and take care of myself as much as humanly possible.
Yeah. So you mentioned you run your own strongman shows too, or used to?
Used to. I was a promoter. It was funny, when I turned 19, the guy who was running strongman in South Australia retired from running them, so I took them over when I was in my early 20s. Early 20s, like 21, 22. And so when I turned pro, I was basically running strongman in South Australia, competing as a pro, working full-time, and it was just one after another. It was so much work at the time. So I promoted shows all through South Australia, actual strongman competitions, and I've also promoted strongman shows, 2 different things. Did that from my early years, in sort of my early 20s, and sort of slowed down towards the 2016, 2015 period where I went, you know what, I've had enough of running shows. I've done this for 5 years, and I basically spent most of my years as a professional athlete running shows for other people. So I wasn't really doing the amount of work I should have been for myself at the time. But, that's what happens. But it really has helped me understand everything better and made me a better athlete.
What were you doing for work at that time when you were younger?
I was a bouncer here in Adelaide. I was a security guard for many years, through doing bodyguard work, through to working in pubs and clubs. And, I've been very lucky to look after some big names from overseas, but also, just doing the pub and club scene here in Adelaide, which has been okay. Money was good, but could think of better jobs to do. But, I made lots of good friends, had lots of good times. Typical 18-year-old kid doing security work, thinking he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But, like I said, learned a lot, made a lot of connections. So it was very, very good for me to learn that type of stuff.
You're a big kid as well. Do you have any other people come up to you and start fights and that?
Not really. Adelaide's a very small place, man. Everyone knows everyone here, yeah? It's very hard to hide here, right? So when I did because I guess I was the only real pro strongman in South Australia almost ever, a lot of people knew what I was doing, knew I was a strongman, knew this and the other, knew I wrestled as a kid. And, you always have someone do something stupid. You always do. Trust me. There's always someone that will have a go. But they, when you break it down to them, what's happening and what's going to happen, they usually tend to smarten up pretty quickly, man. But, I'm not the type of guy that goes out looking for fights. I'm not the type of guy that would fight when I could talk my way up. What good is going to come of the whole situation if I get hurt or I hurt someone else?
Exactly.
There's nothing good that's going to come of it for either of us. It's just going to be bad. But again, like I said, there's always been the situations where someone's pushed the buttons too much or, done something stupid. And, it is what it is.
So how did you get into pulling the big fucking planes and steam trains?
So, I again, like I said, I basically retired from competitive sports and retired from weightlifting, and I still love the sport. I still love the sport to this very day. I still love this sport. But I had moved on, and I didn't have that competitive edge anymore. I didn't want to win anymore. Like the way I explain it, the best way I can explain it to anyone, I've won a shit ton of competitions, but I've lost a shit ton more than I ever won.
Yeah.
Way more. You know, so I got to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm done from competing now. I need to move on to something else in my life. But I still love the sport, so what can I do? So I thought to myself, you know what, I need to give back to people that have given me so much, and to thank people. So back in the 80s and 90s, I'm sure Luke would have brought this up as well. The Wheat Bix series used to be here in Australia, run by David Huxley and Channel 9, and they used to do record-breaking events. And that's why I got the record-breaking idea for the record breakers here in Adelaide. But they were doing huge events, plane pulls, train pulls, etc., etc. So I was like, well, you know what? It hasn't been done for 20 years. I want to do it. So I contacted Steam Ranger, which is one of the oldest steam companies, steam train companies in the country that do tours and everything in South Australia. I said, look, I'd like to pull your locomotive. I wrote up who I am, what I do. I'm, 10 years a pro. I knew someone who was involved with that, and we sort of sat down and chatted about it. I said, look, I don't want to make any money. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to help you guys. So they were doing restoration on a train. That was actually the train out of Thomas the Tank Engine. So there was a movie series on Thomas the Tank Engine. There was an Australian train, and it was based on a train that lives in the Adelaide Hills. And it's been under restoration for a long time, and they needed more money. So I said, look, let me pull one of your locomotives, and we'll do it to raise money for the restoration of the other train. Said, cool, fantastic. So we did that. We had 3,000 people, 3,000 people there. Channel 9, Channel 7, Fox were all there filming this because it hadn't been done for 20 years. Steam Ranger the year before made $350. That was their profit margin for their family day, because we did it on their family day. Their profit margin for the time I pulled the train, $5,500.
Shit.
So I was like, that is so good. This has made a difference. From there, I went on Sunrise the next day, and got a phone call from Sunrise saying, do you want to go on? And Sam Mack, who's the weather guy, is in Adelaide, and, we want to use you and your footage of you pulling the train. I said, yeah, cool, no drama. So I did the interview with Sam Mack, and funny enough, Sam's a South Australian boy, and a friend of mine and Sam go back, way back. So we have a friend in common, which was funny as well. And so we sort of got chatting, and I did the interview. I was driving home, and I got a message from from Cranial Facial here in Adelaide. And a lady named Sharon, who actually came on board and was basically my PR lady for a while as well, she's like, we heard you on television, you're interested in pulling a plane. Because Koshi asked me, he goes, Biggie, what would you want to do? What's your goal? I said, mate, it would be a dream if I ever pulled a plane. And Qantas is the main sponsor of Sunrise. So Koshi's like, we're going to make it happen. We're going to get you pulling a plane. So when somebody says that on TV, you've almost got to back it up. So Qantas were like, oh, okay, well, fair enough. So Cranial Facial said, look, would you do it to raise money for Cranial? I said, of course, no problem at all. So Cranial Facial came on as the benefactor. So I was going to pull the plane to raise money for Cranial Facial Australia, which was, I didn't know how much Cranial Facial, and for those who listen to this or watch this podcast, Cranial Facial is for kids who are born with like cleft lips, or for people who have had car accidents, they crash their elbow bone, or, their head to get their, cranial, get their head fixed. And it was amazing to understand how many people in my life are actually affected by this. That Professor David, who was the main guy behind Cranial Facial, had done surgery on friends of mine who had been in fights and had, damage done to their heads. My mum, who works in dentistry, has stuff to do with them too, because mouth, cranial, same thing, same area. And it just became an absolute honour that I was asked to do this on their behalf. So we had 12 days turnaround from the first train pull to the plane pull for me to prep. I was obviously strong because I just pulled the train. It was just a whirlwind of 2 weeks. It was unbelievable. I'd gone from pulling a train to now going on to Adelaide Airport to pull a Qantas 737. And Sharon, my love to Sharon, she got $20,000 raised in 12 days.
That's awesome.
It was phenomenal. It was just so much fun. I pulled the plane in the pissing rain. It was just an unbelievable moment for me, and something, again, I will cherish forever and ever, because it's something that only about 3 people in Australia has ever done. And, it's not easy to get onto the tarmac at an airport these days, considering the way everything is.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s and 90s when these guys were doing it, it was a lot easier. Now with terrorism and everything like that, it's not easy. So I was very lucky to get on the airport, and again, as I said, a whole lot, something that I'll never ever forget.
Was that the plane that you ended up flying on a year later? I seen on your Instagram.
Yeah, mate. You're the next Joe Rogan, mate. You're doing the research. I love that. Absolutely. So I flew to Darwin to coach 2 of my athletes at Arafura Games, and I was at the airport and I looked at the plane, and between you and me and everyone else listening, I tend to look at the front of any Qantas plane I fly on now to see if it's the one I actually pulled. Yeah. I was walking down and I've looked at the name, and that name does seem familiar. Or at my phone, looked in on the plane, I've got, holy shit, it's the same plane. That's awesome. And I've jumped on the plane and flown up, and I said to the air hostess, I said, can I just sneak around the front of the plane, take a photo? And they're like, oh, could we do it in a couple of minutes? I said, yeah. I'm like, just got some sentimental thing with the plane. They're like, what do you mean? And I showed them the photo. And they're like, oh my God, you're the guy that pulled the plane. I'm like, oh, what have I got myself into now? And they were just so sweet, man. They gave me like 2 bottles of wine and like 10 packs of biscuits as I got off the plane. And the pilot came up and spoke to me about it as well. So it was really cool. It was really funny, man. Really funny.
Would have been a great freaking plane trip up there then.
It was funny when I was travelling around Australia after I pulled the plane. I actually flew to Perth the next day. I pulled the plane. I had to fly to Perth the next day to coach. And I got to Adelaide Airport, and I actually walked through the airport, and people were like chatting to me about it at Adelaide Airport, because it was really, at the airport, it was a really big thing, because who pulls a plane at an airport, right, at their airport. Yeah. So people worked out it was me when I was sitting in the airport, and it was just funny. And, like I said, we were flying a mate of mine who was my engineer, Matt Leslie, who, without him, you'll see him in every photo and every video. There's always this big dude with silver hair, either right next to me or right around there. He's my engineer. He's the guy that basically does all the behind-the-scenes stuff, that I don't have to think about. So, yeah, we'd always travel interstate, and he would go like, you remember the guy that pulled the plane? I'm like, don't you do it. He's like, this is him. And I'm like, really, dude? Really? And then they're like, oh, yeah, I remember you. And they'll come back with 2 bottles of wine and go, here you go. I'm like, I just look at him. He's just, because he knows it makes me awkward.
Yeah.
He does it on purpose. And he finds it hilarious. But, yeah, no, it's good. I love Qantas anyway. I love fun. We're looking forward to flying with them again soon.
Have you pulled a train or plane overseas? Did you do one in Scotland? Well, you were wearing a kilt for one.
So I was meant to go to the UK this year, thanks to the global prick going on at the moment. I was meant to be in the UK pulling a train in Leeds, which is the National Railway Museum. I got asked to go there and do that. And obviously, thanks to COVID, that didn't happen, but looking to do that in the future still. Just cannot believe the luck that I had with that, because I was like, yep, prepped, ready to go. Flights were booked. Everything was prepped, ready to go. And then this happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got invited over to the UK to pull a train, and I was going to do the stone tour there, the one that Luke has done. That we both have a friend of ours that lives over there, James Graham, who does all the behind the scenes stuff and that. So I was looking to do the stone tour, but all things being the way they are, we're all stuck at home.
Yep. So how the hell do you prepare to pull a train or a plane?
It's mental, right? Everything that big is mental. So I remember the first train pull, so it was 155 tons, but there was water in it because I just did a water test the day before. So it was probably a little bit heavier than that. It was probably closer to 165, 170, but, you don't count that. People aren't going to. And I remember stepping up to the front of the train. I walked up to it and looked at it and going, this thing is fucking huge. What am I doing? And I just had to go, you know what? I can't fail this. There's thousands of people here. My family's here. My friends are here. The TV crews are here. So if I fail this, it'll never happen again. So you prepare yourself mentally to just do it. That there's no other option. But also, I'm a meticulous planner. I tested the train pull the week before, so to make sure it was flat, to make sure we can move. Like, I'm meticulous in planning things to make sure that there is nothing that could mess it up. So that's why I have my engineer. That's why I've got all these people around me. So there's no chance of messing this up at all. That's what I believe makes me slightly different, is that I just want it to be perfect so it works, because if it doesn't work, I'm stuffed. So, there's obviously things that happen, like when we pulled the plane, it pissed the rain. I can't control that. There's nothing I could do to control that. But what could we do to control that is make sure that everything was perfect otherwise.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the meticulous planning behind the scenes, the background, the support team, everything makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And like I said, the mental focus. Pulling a train, it takes about 20 seconds of effort before it'll roll. So you're busting your boiler for somewhere between 10 to 20 seconds before that thing wants to even roll. And then finally it starts to roll and you're buggered because you've just put all that effort in for that period of time, and you just have to keep walking. A train is so long and there's so many different things going on. So the way it works is you've got, on a steam train, the pistons that push air in and out. So you're actually pulling the train, pushing air in and out. So you're actually not just, the wheels aren't just turning, you're pushing air in and out as well. Then you've got to understand all the linkages between stuff has to lengthen and then lock and then pull. So you go tension, okay, it'll start to lock, and then you'll start moving one part, and then the next part will start to move. So that's what takes so long. But, and they're just heavy.
How far did you have to move it?
The first time we made a ladder that was like 8 meters long. That was enough. I got off the ladder. I probably got about 10 meters because I kept going off the ladder. But once I got off the ladder, it was dirt. So I just kept going until the momentum stopped.
And how the hell do you train for it? You just lift heavy?
I spoke with all the legend of strongmen in Australia who've done this before. Grant Edwards, David Huxley, Craig Reed, Colin Bryson, World's Strongest Man. I contacted anyone and everyone who had done something like this before and picked their brains on everything. This is that meticulous planning that I was talking about. No stone unturned. I got their thought process, asked what they did, how they set it up, what they set it up with, the type of harness they use, the type of wheel pressure, the type of angle, the position of the plane, the tarmac, where on the tarmac, training, what do I do? What am I going to feel like? How's it going to hurt for me? So I did a lot of sort of heavy work with cardio straight after. So when you're pulling a train, that 20 seconds of moving something is tension. It's not actually moving. And then by the time the tensions are built up, then you start to move. So I was doing like real heavy front squats followed by a sled push. Something similar to that, where you're doing a heavy movement to start, leg-based, body-based, and then something to just burn your legs straight after.
Yeah.
Just so you can deal with it.
Did you have to put on much weight to gain more strength?
I usually was heavier doing these things because simple science, mass moves mass. The heavier you are, the easier it is to make something wrong. So I was always a little bit heavier doing these shows and the record breakers. Anything really heavy show-wise, I was always sort of near the 140 kilos or into the 140. For Olympic weightlifting and Highland Games and speeder or faster moving events, I was sort of in the 130s.
Yeah. And what did you weigh pulling the trains?
I was knocking on the door of 140. I wasn't at my biggest.
Yep.
Record breakers 2015, I was 143, 144. But I would have been close. I would have been just around the 138 to 140 mark.
And what was harder, pulling the train or the plane?
Train, for sure. The train just has so many more moving parts. The plane just has wheels with perfect roller bearings, and the plane's lighter, just more expensive. But the train is just so heavy, so unforgiving almost, just metal. And like I said, it's not just turning wheels, it's actually pushing the pistons in and out with air. So you're working against the train and the train's drivetrain. Like it's pain. That is how I would explain a train pull to anybody. It is just painful. It doesn't feel heavy. And what I mean doesn't feel heavy, it still feels heavy, but it's the painful side of it that's the worst. Yeah. Just, your head wants to blow up because your blood just rushes straight to your head. I look like my shirt or my jumper look like a big red dot.
And is that when you busted some blood vessels?
Yeah, that's when I popped. That's when I did the one where I blew a little bit of blood out the nose was a train pull here in Adelaide. I did one of the show just for fun, and the guys didn't understand how gravity works, and they were making me pull the train slightly uphill. And I started it moving, and I'm like, guys, this is never going to work. I'm explaining to them, like, can we pull it somewhere else? Like, no, we're doing it here. I'm like, guys, it's uphill. I'm never going to move this. And then me being me, I'm just going, you know what? Fine. I'll do it just to spite you all. So I did it. I moved it about 4 meters, and then I got onto one of the rungs, and I'm like, no, it's pulling me back downhill again. And it's pulled me upright and started rolling back downhill. And Matt, who was my engineer's, come and grab me and gone, you got a bit of blood coming out of your nose. So I've got him to stand in front of me so the kids don't see it. Yeah. And just wipe my nose quickly and come back out again. So, because it can be intimidating for young kids. That's not what I want them to see. I don't want them to see me bleeding. It's not nice. It's not really a kid-friendly thing to do, you know. Like, you want to be in good shape, and you know that stuff happens. It happens, like, because I'm exerting myself so much, but I still don't like the look of it. So that was the first time that happened. And then when I pulled the 203 ton frame, 202 ton frame last year, a bit of blood came out of that one because that was just heavy.
So how the hell did you find yourself getting in the circus? How'd that all come about?
To do with the, I guess I was still loving the sport, right? And I enjoyed doing strength sports, and I enjoyed doing it. And I've loved circus since I was young. I love Circus Strongman. The idea of performing to people. Ask anyone. You can ask Luke. You can ask any guys that I competed with. I was a better performing strongman than I ever was as a competitive one. I would always go out in competitions, and I always said if I didn't win, I was still going to be the guy that everyone remembered. You know, over everyone else, I'd be remembered more than the winner. You know, just because of the way I acted out there, the way I made it about the show and the spectacle, not just about a big ugly dude carrying a weight, putting it down and just doing it. That's just boring and makes us look stupid. Like, I was all about actually giving the people that had come to watch us, who paid, their money's worth.
Yeah.
Without those people coming to see us and without them paying to see us, we don't have a sport. We don't have a job. You know, you've got to give them something for them giving you something. So I guess it got to the point where, again, like I said, I was retired, and I was like, you know what? I still want to do something. I want to do Circus Strongman. I've always loved it from a kid. Loved it. Loved the big dumbbell press. Loved the bending the frying pans, breaking baseball bats, breaking bricks, you know, all that type of stuff. So I've enjoyed that since I was young. And I went to the South Australian Circus School and did their adults class and met my coach, Jono. And it was funny. We were doing the class and someone's looked at me and I've looked at them and they're like, are you here for like a bet? I'm like, what? Like, did somebody like bet you wouldn't come here, or you lose a bet to be here? I'm like, no. Why? So, do I not really fit in? Which obviously I did at all. And I did the class. They taught me how to juggle, which I was terrible at. They taught me how to do Diablo, which I was terrible at. They got me doing all this flipping and jumping, which I was terrible at. And I spoke to the guy. I said, look, I'm such and such. This is what I've done in my career. Like, I want to do a fringe show. And fringe here in Adelaide is huge. It's the biggest sort of like performance-based show stuff in the world besides Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So you have thousands of performers come from all around the world to Adelaide to do the fringe. I said, look, I want to do a fringe show for Strongman. And he's like, oh, well, that makes sense. So I met with him a lot of times. We were prepping for my first fringe show this year, 2020. That's right, yeah, 2020. And we were doing the show, prepping. I was writing up how I was going to set up my show. And I blew my bicep off in November and had to have surgery. 15 years as a pro. It was my first surgery ever, and it had to happen then. I was retired already. And I did the injury and had the surgery really quickly and came back really well. And my coach, Jono, was like, well, look, if you're feeling like you can do some stuff, let's get you on stage. So I did the Fringe this year and performed at the Fringe. And it was just like everything that I'd done through my career had led to this point for a reason. I felt like it was just so right for me to be on a stage performing strongman rather than competing in it. But also learning acrobatics, and acro as I like to call it, and circus acrobatics. So learning all the, towers, three highs, and people standing on my shoulders and hand to hand, and, all that real pretty stuff that the acrobats do, so learning that is going to be another aspect of that. And, doing, like I said, the breaking, punching through bricks and all that type of jazz, and all the big circus dumbbells and stuff like that. So it was just so much fun. It was so much fun. And as an athlete going into performing, even though I was very much a performance-based strongman, and even when I was competing, circus and fringe in that world is very different to what I'm used to. So it's taking me a little bit of time to get used to the way they are as people. They're loving people. They're just so honest and so open, and they're just such lovely people. It's very different to the cutthroat athletes world of, win. Because when you're doing performances, there's no win, lose, or draw.
Yeah.
It's about putting on a show for the crowd to enjoy. And it's taken me some time to get sort of that mindset away, I guess.
Yeah, I've liked seeing all the acrobat videos you've been putting up. So you're just the base, are you, or have people attempted to throw you up?
I have. I'm very lucky that here in South Australia, and my coach has had a lot to do with a group called GOM, or Gravity and Other Myths. And there's a guy named Jordan who is one of the best bases in Australia, if not one of the best bases in the world. His goal was to two-high me, so me standing on his shoulders. And this week he finally got it. So I was standing up on his shoulders and he had me locked in. So Jordan's 90 kilos and I'm 140. So he was basing 140. Now, he's used to basing that much weight as a 3 high with 2 people on him, not 1. So he said it was, once I'm up there, it's not a problem because all the weight's in the sheer line. Like if I put myself on your shoulders in the perfect position, you'd be fine.
Yeah, because I'm already
but for
locked
me to
in
actually get up there and you to control me getting up into that spot ain't easy. And my coach, Jono, got me doing a flag. So where I'm standing on his legs with my foot hooked around his head and stretching out away from him. You know, and he's only like 80-odd kilos. You know, these 2 guys, Jono's one of the best coaches in the world and was a very, very good circus performer in his own right. And Jordan, who is one of the best circus performers in the world right now, a part of GOM, who would be like the Cirque du Soleil of Australian circus. Legit, just unbelievable. So, yeah, I've flown twice and I'll never fly again because that's enough of me being off the ground. I'm very happy to have 2 feet on the ground. So I'm a base. I stay on the ground and I just base everyone above us. So hopefully I'm being perceived as what they call a super base because a base usually is maybe 100 kilos. Massive as a base. It's huge as a base. So I outweigh the biggest bases by 40 kilos.
Yeah. So you don't like heights by the scenes of it?
I hate them. I hate flying. You can ask Luke this. You can ask a lot of the athletes that I fly with. Young kids I've coached. I am not a fan of it, even though I've done it a lot through my career and I have to. Yeah, I like 2 feet on the ground. But like anything, these guys are the best in the world, you know, so I'm happy to trust them. And to be honest, it's like we were chatting about before, you know, you doing your podcast and stuff like that, breaking the barrier and kicking it and just going, you know what, bugger it, I'm going to do it anyway, just to break that sort of barrier in your mental mind, you know, and just try something different, you know. So it's good for me to understand what a flyer feels like standing on top of me as well.
Yeah.
And I'd be probably the worst flyer in history.
So how many people are you coaching at the moment?
Oh, mate, I'd be coaching somewhere between 30 and 50.
All in Adelaide or all around the world?
All around the world. So I coach the state weightlifting teams here, CrossFit Hilltop in Mount Barker, Soul 365 in the city. I coach some strongmen out of Powerhouse in Prospect here in Adelaide. And then I coach a lot of guys from New Zealand. I coach a lot of guys from Japan. And I coach a few guys in Europe. So I am spread far and wide. But again, like I said, I get more joy now as a coach than I ever have as a competitor. I just love seeing athletes hit PRs. I think it's the best thing ever. I get so much joy coaching from the side of a platform. I'm very animated. I'm very loud, as you probably can tell from the conversation we've just had now. I've got a pretty loud voice. So I just love being in the thick of the competition as a coach now and just seeing athletes enjoy themselves, seeing athletes hit PRs, but also I like seeing athletes learn. You know, you're not going to win every competition. You're not going to be the greatest all the time. Everyone has losses. I like seeing athletes just have that moment that where you're like, it all clicks. You know, I love that about coaching.
Yeah. Is there any big up-and-coming kids that you're coaching at the moment?
Yeah. So I coach a young kid named Jackson Howie who's taken a little bit of time off with injury. He's an Australian national champion. He's an Arafura Games bronze medalist. He's taken some time off with injury, but he's looking to come back and hopefully in a little bit of time. And if he does come back, he's a superstar. In his first competition, he almost qualified for World Juniors, which will tell you a lot about how good he was, considering he was one of the best in the country in his first comp. Danny Senior, who's from Adelaide, I put up a lot of her videos. She is a CrossFitter turned weightlifter. Just a beautiful mover, strong, good mindset, listens well. Really good lifter. She's only new a year or two of polishing the lifting. She's knocking on the door of an Australian team very soon. And I had a young kid walk in the door 2 weeks ago. Young kid from the Adelaide Hills. He is 6'2", 6'3", 125 kilos, and 16 years old.
Shit.
That was my response to.
That's a big kid.
And, you see these kids, because most people think in their mind, 120, he's going to be fat. He's done that typical country boy, a little bit of puppy fat, but just look like he could tip over a car or carry a cow. Just an absolute monster of a dude, and just an absolutely lovely kid with a lovely family. And he's just so awesome with so much ability. I just look forward to seeing him do whatever he wants to do. Like, he could, in my eyes, he's got World's Strongest Man written all over him.
Yeah.
But again, he might want to take up tennis, volleyball, or cricket or something like that. So I can see him being a superstar, but it's what he wants to do. If he wants to become a superstar, I will back him in every bit of it.
Yeah. Is coaching and Circus your full-time gig at the moment?
Yeah. So coaching and Circus are my full-time jobs. So I coach every day, Monday through Sunday, but I coach the teams Monday through Saturday, and then obviously coach out of those hours with other clients. And then Circus, I train in the mornings, weights, and in the afternoon Circus, and then coach the teams at night time. So that is my full-time kicking job, which is great, and I love it, and it just keeps me non-stop busy.
Do you have your own gym?
No. So I coach out of 3 gyms. Like I said, I coach the weightlifting teams out of Hilltop CrossFit and Soul 365 in the city. And I coach the strongman powerlifting guys out of Powerhouse in Prospect. So spread over 3 gyms, which is lovely. And I've got my little setup behind here that I do my own training if I can't get to the gym. So, but no, I don't have my gym person.
Would you be looking to get your own gym?
I think at the moment I'm just a little too busy with everything, with Circus, with coaching, I'd have to obviously give up a whole lot of time to get everything up and running, which, to be honest, would be perfect right now because we don't have any Circus shows, we don't have anything on. But I work at Soul 365 with James Newbury, who's the 4th fittest man on the planet. So working with him is an absolute honour and a pleasure, coaching him and helping him with his weightlifting. So, I love working out of there. And Hilltop CrossFit in Mount Barker was the first CrossFit gym I worked at, and they're just lovely people. And I coach so many of their young athletes there. So I don't think I really want to move anywhere else.
Yeah. How do you stay committed to your own training, whilst you're coaching so many other people?
I put up a post not too long ago. As a coach, my lifting is now second.
Yeah.
I'm secondary to my athletes now. That's why I retired. Everyone turns out, Biggie, you're so young, why did you retire? So if you want to be a good coach, you'll coach. That's your job. If I have to go to if my day's gotten so busy and I can't lift weights because I've got to coach, I don't lift weights that day. But it's very rare that happens because I'll stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning if I have to. So I just make it work, man. I work everything around it. I will make sure I work to earn money. I will make sure I work to support my team, to make sure my athletes get the most out of me. But I still want the best of my career and still do the things I love. So I just make it work. And sleeping is for when I die.
Over all these years of you, I guess, competing and training, your body would have taken a big toll. How important is recovery to you now?
Oh, I'm glad you asked this question. It's on my Instagram all the time. Recovery's king. James Newbury, 4th fittest man on the planet. Talented, absolutely. Skilled, absolutely. Work ethic, awesome. Recovery, better than any Olympian I've ever seen. He has got ability to do the 1% and 2% outside of the gym that most other people do not have. He uses a great quote. How much do you work in sort of work out of the gym that you work in. So if you work out like 3 hours a day, how much are you putting into you for your recovery? 3 hours? 4 hours? Because you should be. Because you need to be able to recover for the next day. Saunas, cryotherapy. I love cryo, -110, sauna at Seoul, chiro. I have a great chiropractor. I have a great physio. When I ruptured my bicep, I called my physio straight away. My physio had a surgeon working with me within 24 hours. I was in surgery 48 hours later after the rupture. AFL players, NRL players, no sports people get it that quickly.
Yeah.
I was so lucky. Massage, like everything. I do this so I can compete for longer. 15 years as a competitive professional athlete, I've had one surgery. AFL players, NRL players, how often do they have surgery? Every season at the end of it to give a clean out and a fix up. I've had one my whole career. I put that down to the recovery. Absolutely.
That's pretty good going. Only one surgery.
Yeah, look, I consider myself very lucky. Good genetics, hopefully. But again, I always go back to the team around me, man. I've had such a blessing to have such a good team supporting me. And thanks to them, I am where I am now. And, you know, it's going to keep me going for the future. You know, hopefully I'll be doing strength stuff till I'm older. And then one day, obviously, I'll retire completely from everything. And I'll still be getting massages. I'll still be getting all that type of stuff to keep me young or younger. But like I said, you just look at the best guys in the world and they do recovery. And, you know, that's why they're good.
Exactly. So talk to me, when you get some free time, what are your hobbies?
Free time?
Yeah.
Look, I'm a massive fan of music. I love music. I'm a fan of things I can't do. I grew up with a very musical family, so I love music. I love listening to music. I have a 1930 Cadillac 7-passenger limousine that I love, that I drive regularly. I'm a part of a car club here in Adelaide. So any Saturday night when the weather's nice or there's a car show on, I'll jump in the car and take it down. You know, I do like a spice rum and Coke every now and then. You know, and for most people that know me, I'm a connoisseur of cannolis. So I will have a coffee and a cannoli every now and then as well to relax. But you know, like I said, I just like getting out in the car and going for a bit of a drive and just enjoying life because we've only got one, and you know, trying to enjoy every day as you can.
Yeah. Do you do much in regards to personal development?
In what way?
Reading, you know, journaling and that?
So I did a lot when I did my bicep. So when I did my bicep, I did a massive thing on my YouTube account of talking about the comeback and all that type of stuff. And I would love to do a lot more personal stuff about my career, about teaching the next generation of guys as, you know, knowledge of the years of doing what I'm doing, I think should be told, you know. But I guess that might be something in the future that I sort of do as personal for myself to get out my thoughts and my experiences. And, you know, I'm not a huge reader, but I like listening to stuff. So, like, I love listening to podcasts. I love listening to guys who have done things that, you know, I wish I could do, you know. So I'm massive into that type of stuff and just trying to make myself better by learning from other people. You know, there's always something to learn from someone else, always, no matter who they are. It could be a bum on the street. It could be the richest man in the world. Never close your ears off. Always listen. You don't have to take every piece of advice and do it, but just learn and listen. Just listen, because you might pick up something that you've never heard before.
What would you say has been, I guess, your biggest struggle in life thus far, and how did you overcome it?
My biggest struggle, I guess rupturing my bicep was one that I guess, you know, it was a struggle because I thought I'd go through my career without an injury. But, you know, it happened. You know, that was tough, but I had so many good people around me helping me. Luke had done his biceps, so he gave me all the information, all the other people, and I'd seen it and come back and been great. So it wasn't like it was I was never gonna make a comeback. I guess it was probably just when I was getting beaten or when I was sort of down thinking about things, I sort of just had to take those big deep breaths and understand what I needed to do to be different, what I needed to do to become better. When you lose competitions, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a learning curve. So I always tried to be optimistic and I always tried to be a realist about things. As a kid, I always thought I was going to win World's Strongest Man. But then as I got older and understood how the world worked and how everything was in strongman, I rechecked my goals. Not that I never thought I would want to. Never. It wasn't that I didn't change the goal of that. I just had to become more realistic, more of a realist, understand how far I was willing to go and what I was willing to do.
Yeah.
So I was always just trying to think about things and use the brain, because the muscles are great, but the brain tells the muscles what to do.
The brain is so powerful.
100%.
What is your why or purpose for life?
My why or purpose for life?
Yep.
I believe for me, having the career I've had, I want to instill the lessons I've learned. Now, I'm a lifetime drug-free professional strongman. Lifetime drug-free. Now, people will ask, well, Biggie, why? You compete in a non-drug tested sport. Why would you stay drug-free? I stayed drug-free because I wanted to. I wanted to be different to everybody. So I've always been like that. I've always wanted to be different. I didn't want to be a sheep. I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. Did that cause me to be not as good as I could have been? Absolutely. Did I miss out on money because of it? Did I miss out on stuff because of it? Absolutely. But I always look back onto Frank Sinatra, who's one of my favourite singers, and I listen back to his song, I Did It My Way. And I did it my way. I did my whole career my way. I didn't do everything everyone else did because I wanted to prove I could make it the way I was going to do it. And, to other people, they might just go, well, you're a dick. You could have been heaps better. You could have gone to World's Strongest Man. You could have done this, that, or the other. Well, yeah, that's true. That could have happened. Or two, I could have got more injured. Two, I could have anything could have happened. It's like, I could have been World's Strongest Man, maybe. But I chose not to. And I am, to this very day, still very happy I didn't. But if somebody turns around to me, this is what I'm going to do, because I want to do this and I want to win World's Strongest Man, you do you. You do your thing. Do it safely. Do it smartly. Do your thing. But make sure it's what you want to do. Don't let anyone else tell you what you have to do. So I guess for me, I consider myself, I was put here to give back to the community, to support people. I want to be the strongman that picks people up, not puts them down. I want to be the strongman that supports the weak, not saying there's weak people everywhere, but, people have shit days. Hopefully a video I put up will make their day better. If I can do these super events to raise money for charities, that's doing a good thing to help someone's day. If a young kid comes out and watches me do something, if they go home with a smile on their face, I've done my job. I've done my job as a strongman. I've done my job as a circus performer. I want to be that guy that can make you smile, that'll enjoy the show. I want to be that coach who, kicks athletes in the ass when they need to be kicked in the ass, but can understand what it's like to be an athlete and how they feel and how some days it's just not what happens and some days it's just not your day.
Who do you look up to or who inspires you?
Well, my mum is probably one of the biggest inspirations in my life. My grandfather, if it wasn't for my grandfather, I wouldn't be interested in cars like I am. My grandfather's hat sits in my Cadillac all the time. It lives in the back seat. So I miss him every day. He never got to see me be a strong man, but I wish he did. My mum has made me to be the person I am. If I could be half as good a person as her, I will be a very successful person in my life and as a person in life. In sport, I look up to my peers, guys like Luke Reynolds, guys like Commonwealth, guys like Rongo. Me and Luke are probably the oldest two guys still involved in the sport, but I look up to the guys that are competing now, who are juniors in the sport in the years competing sense, because of the way they do things. They do things differently to how I did, and I respect that. I got to meet Mishka Clive, who was my hero growing up as a strength athlete. I got to do all these wonderful things, so I've just got so many people in my life who have just given me so much and asked for very little in return. I guess everyone around me who's helped me, I just respect and love so much because they've given me so much.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in the next few years, or do you have big goals?
Yeah, man, I've got big goals in Circus. I've got things I want to do there that have never been done before. I want to be the strongman that everyone comes to see at the Circus. I want to travel, and I want to go on the circus circuit and perform around the world, and that's what I want to do. But again, I want to coach. I want to coach my athletes to the Olympics, to Com Games, to world champs, to national champs, to state champs, to club comps. I just want to see all my guys do well. There's always something to be done. Usually the first question that people ask me is, what's next? What are you going to pull next, or all that type of jazz? For me, there's always something. I've always got something to be done, and but at the moment, I'm really wanting to get this circus stuff up and running and just get better, learn and learn and learn, and be that sponge, that 30-year-old sponge,
And more personally, do you want to have, kids eventually?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I'd love to have kids one day. I coach enough already, so I don't need any at the moment.
You have a partner?
My master now. Say again?
You have a partner?
No, I don't. I actually don't have a partner. It's funny, as a professional athlete and as a performer, my days are so packed and full, and I'm always doing something. I kind of feel like I don't want to put the pressure on somebody else to have to do all the work in the relationship.
Yeah.
For me, in my opinion, a female shouldn't be doing all the work, or the male should be doing all the work. It's a partnership for a reason.
Yeah.
You want to be together for a reason and do everything for each other. And if I'm doing all this stuff for myself and not giving enough time to that person, I shouldn't be trying to drag them along. It's just one of those things. So, one day there might be a Mrs. Biggie out there somewhere.
She's waiting for you, mate. She's waiting for you.
Well, I was chatting to a friend of mine the other day, one of the guys from the gym, his partner I coach, or his wife I coach. And I said, every person's got a bullet with their name on it. And I just pointed to his wife and said, well, there's your bullet.
Oh, God. Man, so when your time's up on this earth, what would you like to be remembered for?
Look, if I can just be remembered at all, would be great. But I just hope I can become half as good a person as my grandparents and my mum. They gave so much to so many and asked for nothing in return. My mum still does it now. I'd be so happy. If I don't want to be remembered as a guy that won all these competitions. I don't really want to be remembered for that, because if that's what I get remembered for, that's fine. But don't get me wrong, if I get remembered for that, that's fine as well. But if you really ask what I want to be remembered for, I just want to be remembered as that guy that was there to help.
Yeah.
That I was there to help as many people as I could in my way. And I also want to be remembered as the strongman that did it his way.
Yep.
You know, so
that's awesome.
That would be nice if I could be half as good as some people in my life.
Yeah. And lastly, what is your definition of success?
My definition of success is reaching your personal goals. Your goals, not other people's. If you want to be the guy that can hit a golf ball the furthest and you reach that goal, that's success. If you want to be the first person to flip a $2 coin down your throat and that's your goal and you hit it, and that's success. If you want to be the first multi-billionaire, that's fine too, and that's your success. What you do in your goals in your life, if you reach them through hard work and effort, and you can bring people along with you and help other people, that is a successful person. A person that can help others and reach their goals. I believe that is a successful person.
Yeah. Well, brother, thank you for coming on. It's been my absolute pleasure. It's been an awesome chat. And thank you.
Dude, trust me, man, it's been my absolute pleasure to chat. And like I said, we spoke off air about, this being a platform for yourself to kick down walls. This isn't really your type of thing to do. But, man, it's been an absolute pleasure being on your podcast, man. I've enjoyed the chat. Like, it's been one of those ones that's just flowed on so long where I feel like I can talk and talk and talk. And, like I said, you're an absolute legend, man. Your podcast is fantastic. And like I said, for someone that's not really used to or comfortable doing this stuff all the time, man, you absolutely kill it. So, again, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It's all good. And for all the listeners out there, where's the best place to follow you?
To follow me? Okay, best places is probably on Instagram. The King of the Circus, Jordan Biggie, is the sort of the catchphrase. So it's Jordan_Biggie or King of the Circus. On Instagram, on Facebook is the same again. The King of the Circus, Jordan Biggie Steffans. Give us a follow if you want to see all the weird, out there kind of stuff I do. There's plenty of funny stuff to go up.
Sweet. I've seen you got some sponsors as well. You want to give them a shout out?
Oh, well, I'm wearing one right now, Gentech Nutrition. I've got to give them a shout out. They were my first ever sponsor, Gentech. Nick Jones was my first ever sponsor. Massage Life, Big Paul Zabanski, been looking after me for my whole career. -110, cryotherapy, chiropractor on Winston, Dr. Lucia, she's just so bloody awesome. Flex Fitness Equipment, Armor Tech, the Wildlife. I've just, like I said, I've been so lucky. Flex Physio. All these guys have been supporting me for so long. I'm just absolutely blessed to have them. And also I'll shoot out Nobles as well as I'm their brand ambassador for the strongest chain in the world, the Grade 10 Noble chain. Bam, I'll give that one a smash.
That's awesome, man. Thank you once again for all the listeners out there. If you enjoy this episode, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and share it on your socials. Hope you enjoy.